says it.
Isn't it awesome though? Didn't I present you in an awesome way? Like I don't think you've ever had anyone presenting you that way. Just
No,
saying.
I really haven't. So it's really amazing. Thank you. But I would say like how I got into my position at VaynerMedia, it wasn't necessarily typical. I didn't apply initially. They had reached out to me. And I was already looking for a new role. It's in the same position, but just not at the associate level, just level above. So I just interviewed and I'm here. So it's a really nice because it just kind of I felt seen essentially. I was just like, wow, these people reach out to me and don't really necessarily care about my resume. It's funny because actually just this week they went back to my resume and it was because of the Building Beats announcement that I made, and they're like, oh my God, wait, you do other things? I'm like, did you not see my resume? But it's okay. So as far as getting into media, I was always interested in it. Like literally, like all my life, I was interested in media and arts. My mom's background, she's a opera singer. So I always wanted to be in the background because I saw how stressful it was being in the limelight. So I was just like, I'm gonna take a step back and just find a way to help people on that side. So that's how I am. As far as for Hang Time, I can now say my company that I started on my own. And yes, I'm the editor-in-chief and publisher. I like the publisher title more because I don't like editing, although that comes with having to write. So that's just it. But yeah.
Awesome. Well, can you tell us a little bit more about Hangtime Magazine, what it's about, and why did you create it, and what is the main purpose of this publication?
Yeah, so similar, I can say it's similar to how the 100 Concretes is just, I saw all of these talented people and I just found it unfair that no one was talking about them. So it started out with a blog, Unrated Ebony, when I was in college. And then it stemmed out of there and I wanted to do more like written pieces. So I was just doing a lot of like artist spotlights. And at first a lot of people thought, I thought it was PR. I'm like, oh, I'm giving these people like earned media. I'm like like kind of spreading the word about who these people are. But someone actually came out and said, what you're doing is like media in general, and the way how that you're kind of pushing it is through advertising. Because I was like using social media as a tool to kind of get the message out there and kind of like use all these different elements just to promote them. And yeah, so I just saw these really talented DJs, photographers, visual artists of all sorts, and I just didn't like the fact that all these other publications out there weren't talking about them, and a lot of times it was because they were Black. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. And do you mind me asking, like, in terms of like revenue and profit, is the publication like in that spectrum, or is it more on non-profit side?
It's I I won't say nonprofit, but it's definitely subscription based.
Okay.
And we sell magazines and also ticketing, like so sales as well. So everything's just kind of just based off sales and subscriptions.
Mhm. And have you found it like being very well received by, you know, like other organizations, other companies, businesses? Anybody has ever been interested in like, you know, funding or doing a collaboration with you? Has it been seen by the public eye? You know,
It
maybe-
has, but I
Mhm.
will say that because I'm still very young in my career. I'm still very young. I'm sure all of the roles you heard that I was more so in an internship position.
Mhm.
Um, so if anything, that was kind of like my leg up to get to where I am now.
Mhm.
But yeah, so if a lot of times I get a lot of emails coming to me, and half the time I don't know what to do with it. But being in like working at VaynerMedia and understanding how VaynerMedia came about, that's kind of just how everything is.
Mhm.
You just take it for what it is and just learn on the spot. So that's what I'm doing all the time. I'm just like reading, sometimes Googling. I'm like, okay, what's this word? Yes, I can do that. But that's really, it just, I hate saying fake it till you make it, but that's essentially what you have to do, especially if you're doing something that no one else is doing,
Right.
because no one else is doing this.
So
Um,
VaynerMedia reached out to you based on like they saw you, like, or you didn't apply or anything. Can you just like tell me a little bit like how did that happen? Because it's a huge company and you have like a senior role there. So I'm asking because like these are all insights for all of us to know. So
Yeah.
how did that happen? Just curious.
Honestly, it was through LinkedIn. So you just
Hmm.
have to be very, if you're not really big on social media, you can at least tailor it the way that you want to. So you can just
Hmm.
curate and make this story of like what, like how, like people you want to perceive, like you want to be perceived by other people. There we go.
Hmm.
Um, so I think they just saw like what I was doing and they like kind of fit to what they were looking for. And
Hmm.
also checking off the box like, oh, we need someone, a person of color. So if anything, it kind of worked in their favor. um,
Oh,
yeah.
perfect.
So yeah, social media is really good, guys. They look at that. They
Hmm.
really do.
Definitely.
They really look at that.
I'm curious to know, and like I think this is something because I see like a lot of similarities of your approach and like even mine when I like got into the industry of like doing different disciplines and like tapping your hands to different things. Did you feel like your short periods of like training or like entry level jobs that you've done before, like as an account strategist, as a social media person, everything have come to your favor? And clearly it has because working in VaynerMedia is something that's really good, but did
Yeah.
you feel like in because you started off in your entry level or internship jobs in an area in an era, I'm sorry, like in 2017 where the shift of like traditional to experimental and renaissance approach has been there, like where people say like it doesn't matter if you stay in a company for 5 years, you know now the world is shifting into going to different places and having multiple positions because the old fashioned way was like you can't jump around too much because jumping around too much might not get you hired. I don't know, maybe that was a mentality in America, but back in Dubai and in the Middle East, like they say it's a very funny saying. They say the ass that moves a lot will not get hired. It's in Arabic, but when you translate it to English, it's very vulgar.
No,
But
it's very accurate. It's also similar here, and also I was told the same thing. Um,
mhm.
and so before working at Vayner, I was at Wavemaker, which is a sister company or subsidiary of Group M, and then a subsidiary of WPP. So there's a lot going on there. But yeah, no, I would say it definitely helps to have, or in this case, be a Jane of all trades or a Jack of all trades, to just get in. But then once you get in, that's when you can kind of like know what exactly your strengths are and like what your real interests are. So I know my interest is it's art, media, and music. And it works for me now at Vayner because it does sound, it sucks when you have to go from one agency to another to kind of like go up, but that's you, instead of looking at it from, oh, they're gonna look at me and see that I can't stay somewhere, or I had a lot of issues here, but no, you're kind of just doing it to benefit yourself. I wanted to leave my last agency because I knew that there was no way for me to move up. So regardless of where I would end up, I didn't know I was going to end up at VaynerMedia. To be quite honest, I didn't want to. I wanted to work on the publishing side, so it was between them and Vox. I really wanted Vox Media, but it didn't work out that way. And so, and then Vayner also, money was looking a lot better. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna go here. But I was able, like, you really have to take all the skills that you learn, and it helps to know that every skill is transferable. And a lot of people say that, and I don't think people really take it to heart or really like believe in it, but it really does. Like all the skills and all the tools I've learned, even from high school, I still use today. And it just works with having to constantly work and do it all the time and practice it. And as you're doing it, you kind of just learn, all right, this is what I know how to do. This is where I can improve. How can I bring this together? How can I make my job work better? And it does. A lot of times, especially in work now, I love social media. I love Twitter specifically. So now they like kind of dub me as the Twitter queen, and I'm just like, okay. They're like, hey, can you tell us what you see going on your end? And also, I'm like, I'm Black, so they're just like, what's going on Black Twitter? I'm just like, well, this is what's happening, and they're just like, okay, we're gonna stay away from there and go on this side. Um, and it really does matter, like what your backgrounds are, regardless of where you're from, because it really brings value into the work that you do.
Awesome. That's really good to know. And now that you mentioned, like when you take on tasks that relate to your experience and how you relate them in your position, like for example, handling Black Twitter, can you share with us a little bit about your experience of like, especially now with everything going on of like are you and other people of color, the people that, white employees turn to with like, oh, well, we don't know. Do you know about this? Should we ask you about this? Do you feel like this comes to your benefit? Does it sometimes make you feel like at unease, like, why am I supposed to do this? Or do you feel maybe like some sort of pride that like, wait, I'm a huge asset here. These
Yeah,
people don't know, but I know. So maybe tell us a little bit like where you are right now. How
yeah.
does your culture and giving, all the racial tension happening, everything, how do
It's
you stand
yeah.
valuable as an employee?
It's definitely half and half. At first, I didn't like it because it kind of felt like tokenism is like, oh, you're the person that we can reach out to. So what's going on? And now it's coming to the point where, because of everything that's happening, we had an open dialogue at VaynerMedia prior to this, but now it's just become more apparent. So if anything, a lot of like our white counterparts are coming to us and like, hey, I don't want to come to you about this anymore because I understand that you will feel uncomfortable. So what is it that I can do to teach myself on like how to look up these things? That's amazing. I love that because it doesn't put that pressure on us, and they're doing the work themselves. And also, we're not, there's a multicultural marketing is really big and it's its own thing. And I think right now, especially at VaynerMedia, they're understanding how important that is. And if anything, they kind of feel upset that they didn't think about it before. So I know that that's something that's in the works, and I'm like really happy to even help them there. And it's just a matter of raising my hand, like, hey, I don't want to be the person that you like come to all the time, but I do want to learn this. So if I can speak on it on a very professional level with my team members, because I do want to say like, hey, like we shouldn't talk to certain like audiences, or we should kind of like target a more an audience that makes sense for what we're doing, versus like, oh, this is what's happening right now, this is what's trending, let's put it there. And that's another thing, you don't want it to just be a trend. And that's something that they're also understanding. It's like, this isn't a trend, like this is something that people of color live with every single day. And I appreciate that they even like acknowledge that. Something that VaynerMedia has specifically is their own metric, their media metric. So, and that's why, especially for Twitter, it matters a lot because it really determines how well our business and like how well our work like does. And the client really like looks at it. So it's called VVM, Vayner Volume Model. Is basically you just put out a bunch of content every single day or every single week, and you kind of just see what sticks. So you're kind of just throwing stuff at the wall, and you're gonna see like, okay, which one is being resonated most with people outside in the world? What are they gonna take in? How are they responding to it? So that's why it really matters to have like different opinions and different ideas on a specific team or in a, like just on a certain project, because you're able to take that and see what's happening. Because what I have on my Twitter or any social media account, someone else doesn't see that. So to be able to even apply, like, it's really great. A lot of agencies, they have separated, like they have media separate, creative separate, like they're all going to different agencies to kind of communicate with each other. And the brand that I work on, we have it all in-house. So it's really great for us because the strategy, creative and media team, we're all like in one Slack group, and they really want us to share what we're seeing. And I've never seen that before. And like, regardless of like what is happening in the world or like what I have to deal with personally with like certain employees or certain coworkers, that kind of just like goes over my head because I understand like everyone is here for the same mission. We're just like, look, we do want to support this brand, but also we do want to make it make sense. So with that being said, this whole Vayner volume model, we're like, all right, what is sticking, but also what is resonating? What is relevant? How are these people perceiving it? Is it relevant to Black people? Is it relevant to trans people? Like that's stuff that we actually care about. And it wouldn't have been the case if it wasn't for the people that were in the room or in this the Slack channel in this case. Since nobody's in the office no more. But and that I kind of miss the office. I really do. I don't
Oh,
like working from home. I really
uh,
don't.
I don't share the sentiment. The office can stay where it is. The colleagues that whatever. I'm not gonna get into that. But anyway, I want to, I want to ask you. So can you elaborate a little bit more on like on your role and what you do, and maybe give us an example of a project? We have a lot of GIs here who are media planning focused, and I kind of want them like to, be exposed to like how media planning is so broad, but also very complex and has different like, tasks. So maybe for them to know like would this be a position that would interest them? So maybe give us, an example of a campaign you worked on, and what was your role in that campaign, and how did you work with different teams, you know, on
Oh,
that
so
internship?
yeah, so the brand I work on right now is Sabra. I've been on it for the past so since the Super Bowl, we've been on it from the Super Bowl and like onward, and
Sabra the
it's
hummus?
yeah, the hummus.
Oh
Yeah,
God, girl, no.
yeah,
Not do that.
yeah, believe it or not, it's actually really fun, and it's interesting because we see the comments, especially on Twitter, that comes in, and there's nothing that we can really do. And it sucks because we do tell the client a lot. We're just like, hey, we see these comments, and this is really gonna hurt your brand. This is really hurting your brand.
Hummus
You
is
have to
what,
do
for
something
example? Like
about
what?
it. So BDS comments. So if you're from the Middle East, you understand what's
Oh,
going
I
on.
am from the Middle East. That's why I'm
Yeah,
asking.
I know you know, but for anyone else on the call, like,
I don't comment, but I have deep feelings towards Sabra. Like this
yeah.
is like you're offending me with putting that shit in the supermarket. I'm like, are you serious?
Oh, I'm so
Putting green
sorry.
bell peppers. I'm like, mm-mm.
Hey, I mean, that comes with working in corporate. You don't really have a say in the things that you do. And to be quite honest, and this is kind of selfish of me too, is that working on this brand will help my career. Even once I leave corporate America, that will help me because I at least know how to work on a brand that doesn't have really good sentiment in the first place. So how can I at least talk to people and not necessarily get around it, because I know I don't want to get around it. And if anything, we're the ones that are kind of pushing the client like, hey, maybe you should respond to this. But at the end of the day, they also have a boss on top of them that are just like, I can't really deal with this right now, or this is something that they can't really speak on because it's beyond the company. If you really think about it, it's way beyond the company. It's like it's a human right thing. It's literally a human right thing, and I think that's why working on Saba right now is very interesting, especially given the climate as well, because all brands are going through the same thing. Is There's just brand perception, like how people perceive me despite what's going on. And sorry, I forgot the question. It has something. Can you repeat the
That's
question?
your task. Like, tell us more. Like, how did you handle it? Like, from a media planning perspective, like looking at moderating comments is one thing, but also like do you look at metrics?
Yeah. We do look at, so I told you that Vayner, we have our own metric. And for the account, like for Sabra specifically, we follow that metric. So there's a lot of math that we do on our own that goes into it. So stuff that you won't even learn in school or that you will learn on your own. That's something that is very specific to this agency. Um, but it goes a lot into media planning because you have to understand what the platform like is meant to do. Like with Twitter, you know that people go there to share their opinions, to share their thoughts. And right now it's kind of just like, hey, do you want to stay on Twitter? Knowing that all this is going on. And even in the news, you see brands like Target that are standing for Black Lives Matter, but then going behind and doing block lists. So this is where they're kind of just saying, we don't want to be on any site, or we don't want to have any ads where the words protest or George Floyd or Breonna Taylor would be there. But then at the same time, they're saying, oh yeah, but we support Black lives. And it's like, you can't really do stuff like that. Um, so, so for my role, it's really reading the news and trade publications, understanding what is happening in the world, and making sure that I understand how to do that when it comes to my media plans. And that's going to be shown to the client. Um, yeah, so it's really just understand, like, you just have to be very educated on what's going on in the world. And a lot of time it does suck. It really does suck when like you do see something and you do say something, but it's out of your hands because it's whatever they say yes to. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, some of these things. I think, it's very beneficial for everyone to know, like, what they're getting into if they apply for a position like that. And like, I'm pretty sure you agree with me that like media planners in different agencies have maybe different tasks. Maybe the umbrella is the same, but the nitty-bitty details are somehow different.
Yeah.
Um, in
I
terms
will.
of,
Oh yeah, sorry.
go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was gonna say, so I can say with media planning that it definitely does differ depending what agency you're on. So the last agency, I was dual roles. So I was a media planner and a media buyer. And here I'm just a media planner. And when you're doing media, like at a media agency and not an advertising agency, you tend to have multiple roles. You kind of, you're like the project manager, and then you're also the account manager talking to the clients, um, and you're doing comms planning at the same time. But here, my role is specifically media planning, but it kind of like blends in with comms strategy because I have to understand like what's going into the overall plan and like overall like brand strategy for the client. But yeah, so it definitely differs like in what agency you are as well.
Awesome. Great. So in terms of like communication, with your coworkers and colleagues and everything, like how, I think that's a question, maybe like a lot of people like should know about when you have, um, like, white supervisor counterparts and like, maybe other people of color who work with you. And in terms of like adapting and like code switching and all of that, like how do you feel you navigate a space where there are other, people of color working with you, but like the supervisor, tend to be maybe white or um, like how would you navigate? Do you feel like there is like an awkward situation where you have to like switch from one place to another, or do you feel like what, I'm here to work and it's work, so whoever I'm working with, like I'm here to communicate through a work setting. Do you
Yeah,
feel like it's challenging?
I used to. So my last agency was definitely challenging, and with Vayner, I found it too good to be true to be my full self. To be, believe it or not, I really like I didn't believe it, um, and it actually took me just as long as me working at my last agency to come out of that feeling. When I first started working at Vayner, everyone above me was actually a person of color. They weren't black, but they were a person of color. So I was like, oh snap, this is dope. I was like, this is so dope. And like it made it easier for me to go to them about certain issues or things that I saw, because I'm like, oh yeah, they totally have my back. And it was great because they did. Even in times where like my last agency, I had to kind of like prove, like write down, like, well, this person said it this way, and this is how it made me feel. And in this instance, I don't really have to say much. They're like, nope, we saw it. Don't have to say nothing. We'll talk to them. I'm like, oh my god, that's great. So it's a really great feeling. If anything, I'm really happy that I don't have that issue anymore. But it's something that does exist, and I do now. I even though my like senior, he's still a person of color, but the person above me, he's not. And I don't know. I guess because I was already working under the other two people, it just was a very seamless like. And also they've been here the same amount of time as the other people as well. I don't know. I don't have that issue anymore, but it definitely it definitely is
It's
something
above
that,
you.
yeah, I don't have that issue anymore. Like my boss, he's so chill. If anything, he's too chill. And I'm just like, I have this problem where like, can you give me feedback? And I think that's the only problem I have now, because like if I like criticism, and I like when people like I want to grow. So I would love for someone to tell me like where I can work in. So a lot of times I kind of just pushing him like, hey, is there something I could do better? It's like, no, you're doing great. I'm just like, this isn't helping me, but okay. So that's the only thing that I have an issue with right now, because it to me it makes me feel like, well, am I okay? Like, is there something that I can do? Um, yeah, it's kind of just like I'm just going through the motions of doing my work. Yeah.
And what would be your comment on the sense of competition, maybe with other people who are, in your department? And have you ever felt like there was a competition, or maybe like somebody wanted to be the best at what they do and be noticed by upper management?
It was at first, because when I got hired, my so planning and buying, I have a buyer who's technically my partner. She's my partner. Similar to like how copywriters and art directors have our partners, like she's my partner. But it came like with VaynerMedia, they were very buying focused, not planning. So there was competition in the sense like I can show them that I can do media planning separate from how they described it when it was just a media buying company. But that was it. And it also has to do with what account you're on. So the account we were on at the time, there wasn't much media planning I could do. I did but so much, and then after that it was up to the buyer to kind of go in and like implement and like go in platform. But now with this account, and again, it's there's a lot of work to be done that can be done, that our roles are very separate and very defined, that we don't really have that issue anymore. But it's very real. It's a very real issue.
Mhm. And how are you feeling right now? I mean, you've started working with VaynerMedia like what, a month ago?
No, I make a year next month.
Oh, oh, you'll be in a year next month. Okay, sorry,
Yeah.
sorry, I didn't know. All right,
That's
and
great.
I'm sorry, my bad.
It
Because
feels longer than that, to be honest. It feels so much longer than that. But yeah.
how are they in terms of like, I mean, maybe you don't want to share too much of the information, but like, how did they adapt to COVID in terms of like, making sure their employees stay there? Has there been a shift? Have they given opportunities, like maybe a lot of furloughs? What happened? How was business? How was revenue? Maybe you can give us a little bit of insight of like how your company handled it.
I'm not going to give too much information about that, but it was definitely really tough.
Hmm.
And I would say that a lot of the employees were very vocal about it, very vocal. And especially having a CEO like Gary, he's always going onto social media and doing his thing, doing what Gary Vee does. And we actually bring that up to him, like in the agency. We're just like, hey, so we saw you go on IG Live, just randomly giving people jobs, but these people here lost their jobs. What's up with that? And he actually had to like own up to it, answer that question, which we all appreciated. And sometimes some of the answers that he gives or anyone else gives, we don't necessarily agree with it 100%. And it's good to the point where like they actually hear that out. And that's why I like working here, because they're all receptive to it. And going back, like I make a year. Within the year that I've been here, I've always had feedback. They're very open to feedback. And at first I wasn't okay with the fact that they go to like the people around you, like to like say, how is this person, like how do you work well with them, do they work well with others? I didn't like that at first. It was like, why are you asking all these people about what I do? Like, shouldn't it just be who is above me, or like who's like my direct like manager? But I like it now because it's not just on me. I also give the feedback for them as well. And not a lot of people can say that at their agencies. Even like some people, like they have issues with their VPs, but I can give feedback on what my VP does. So I think that's really great. Uh, yeah.
And in terms of like, the movement and the Black Lives Matter movement and like everything going on. We've been talking, I mean, LinkedIn has been booming right now with like talking about, like upgrading and like evolving, Black and brown talent through executive roles, especially in the media industry and everything. How did VaynerMedia handle it? And what are your thoughts about it, of like what a company should be doing when
Yeah.
something like this is happening?
So I
Because,
mentioned, yeah. So I mentioned earlier that they're implementing doing like multicultural marketing like within the agency. So they're looking for people inside of the agency, but also outside, that can help make that initiative happen. And it kind of just works with doing like partnerships where you're working with talent of color. So I think that's really great. And also, again, they're really open to feedback. So that's like me. And this actually literally happened like 2 weeks ago, maybe a week and a half ago, where they have like these little sessions for different groups, kind of just asking like, hey, how you guys feel about what's going on today? What is it that we can do to make this agency better? Because Vayner is still new. Like they just made 10 years last year. So they're just like, okay, we can clearly grow and become better. So how can we do that? And that's what they're doing. So my question was like, hey, you keep trying to hire people that's outside, but what about someone like me that probably wants to get promoted? And then they literally took a step back and they're like, oh, you're right. And so now there's more conversations that I have with people in HR, and they're just like, we really we really don't like that you don't feel that you can move up. So how can we change that for someone like you? And also it comes with the fact that I am still very not entry level, but I'm still very entry level. There's no way that I can be VP like tomorrow or next year. So it is still having to look outward and seeing what talent there is, but it's also looking inward. Just being vocal about it as well. Uh, yeah, that's all I can say.
you would feel that now in your career, like you are at an entry level position, or you feel like you've upgraded to mid level, given like, even though you have like multiple experiences in like different positions, but do you feel like you're confident that you are at a mid level position right now, or?
Oh no, yeah, I'm totally mid level. I'm like in. I definitely feel that way, especially like with the work that I do, and just because it comes with expertise as well. And I feel like a lot of like people always say, oh yeah, you need 4 years of experience here. But just the other day I saw on Twitter, someone was just like, I saw a job description saying that this person needs 4+ years of web development in this tool, but he was actually the creator and he like made it like a year and a half ago. So he's like, how do you need 4 years when I just made this? He's like, this doesn't make any sense. So
Well, elaborate on that. Elaborate on your insights on that. Not necessarily from VaynerMedia, but maybe what do you know about that? Like the job openings and like maybe for like media positions, like the accuracy in them, and when you come to an interview, when they ask you things, what do you discover
about myself or about the agency?
about the job role itself? Let's not necessarily the agency, but like
Yeah.
when you look at, for example, a job, because given that you've done multiple roles, when you look, for example, like a job online and it has like requirements, but then when you go to the interview,
Yeah.
did you notice any discrepancies? I don't know how to pronounce the word discrepancies.
Yeah, that's, you said it right. You said it right.
And however it comes out.
Yeah. No, it definitely, honestly, I feel like every role changes. And yeah, no, it always changes. Like when like I said, when I started, I was hired to be senior media planner, but I wasn't doing much media planning. So like it really just depends on like what work is available at the time. And a lot of times it kind of just is them trying to fill up the space. Because when you think about like accounts too, they have to make up a number for the client as well. So if the client signed a contract to have a senior media planner, a senior media buyer, and an analyst, and then a associate media planner, you have to kind of fill in those spots. And if
Mhm.
those roles are already taken up, or if those positions are already taken up on other accounts, you can't really take them away. And that's where like a lot of people come in like, oh, well, you could be 50% here, 50% on this account. It's just like a lot of factors go into it. But going back to your question about job descriptions, yeah, I don't really trust them. I do, like, again, fake it till you make it. You go and you read the job description. If you can literally say like, okay, I have experience or I can speak to this, then at least you know personally that you can do the job well in that sense. But you always have to understand that when you're working, you're also learning new things as well, because when you're moving up, like there's different descriptions in those roles as well. So what I'm doing as a senior media planner is very different from a manager. And if anything, that's actually why I know that I'm capable of moving up, because I'm like, oh, I'm doing manager level work right now. What's up with that? So that's on me to kind of write that down and let them know like, hey, I believe that I can be up for promotion because I am doing a lot more than what is in my actual job description. So
Mhm.
it works in favor for you, especially if you're already in the agency, but it can also hurt you if you're not. And if like you're trying to come in, you're just like, all right, how can I finesse this? Which is real.
Well, do you feel like you've had that like when did you start feeling like you had the comfort of like, you know what, I'm gonna start speaking up about stuff and I'm gonna start doing things my own way differently? Do you not notice, for example, like, all the time?
Yeah, from jump, definitely.
From jump.
Yeah,
Okay.
like when I came in, and they asked me too, and that's another thing. They explicitly asked me, they're like, hey, we need someone that can do this because we know we're not experts in this. Like I came in thinking that I would do more direct partnerships with publishers. And even though that wasn't the case, I knew that that's what they wanted. And right now, and this is what I should have brought up earlier, Sabra is now doing podcasting, and it's because I was just like, I think this is possible. This is a really great space to be in, and it will really work. And also, given what's going on with Sabra and in the world, there won't be a lot of people engaging too much because you can't really like type back to an audio spot.
Mhm.
So that's why I was like, okay, so now I'm leading a whole audio like podcasting program for this account, and
Mhm.
it's just me. No one else is doing it. I like ask about one question, but half the time it's just like, nope, you got this. And I'm like, all right, I got
Well,
this.
in that situation, Ebony, and but then again, that's given off like how strongly you feel about certain topics. Now, we talk about narrative, all right, and content narratives, and the content narratives are existent in media and everything. You know, Black Lives Matter is a content narrative. You know, what's happening with Sabra and like how it benefits of like Middle Eastern countries and everything. That is also like a narrative that is there. I'm not comparing Black Lives Matter to this. They have nothing to do with them, but we're talking about like narratives that have been taken away from other cultures and like they have been like colonized or like marginalized or maybe like whitenized, and like we don't have a say on
Yeah.
pushing the real narrative through it because we're working for corporate America.
Hmm.
But do you feel like you can do something about it? If you felt strongly, for example, let's suppose about Sabra, like, do you feel like you do have a say in like, you know what, maybe in this podcast, can we talk about the appreciation of how Sabra came about and what can Sabra do to boost up a narrative to take away the negative comments, for example? And
Yeah.
that's more like a PR strategy more than media, I'm assuming. But
Yeah.
do you feel like this is something that can be done with your position?
So I'm glad you brought up the PR aspect because, like I said before, it has been something where we do say, like, maybe, because from a media standpoint, we can see what people are saying on social media. So we can literally tell them, and we have literally said, this is what they're saying. Maybe you should answer it. And they're like, I don't know. Go into your PR aspect, whatever the public, like, they have a separate public relations agency. So whatever they say kind of goes. So unfortunately, we can offer it up, but again, it kind of just goes with them saying yes or no to it.
And you have to think about like, you know what? Well, eventually, you're not the one who's pushing a wrong narrative. You're just doing your job.
Yeah, and it
And
sucks. It really does
it
suck.
sucks. It does suck. Like we can't. I mean, we do live in a world where like we're pushing for a politically correct agenda, and I always tell everyone like this is what college is for. Like college you have more freedom, and Ebony, you have your own magazine where you can push for narratives like that. Do
Yeah,
you
exactly.
do you agree with me? And I'll open the floor to questions. Do you agree that pushing for our narratives can be done not necessarily with the help of like corporates, just simply because they have a wider audience, but it takes more effort and like more investment, but it's much more beneficial. Do you feel like it's much more beneficial and much more rewarding when you do it on your own and with a community of or organization of people that believe in it too, rather than just like letting it out to corporate America and they're not going to listen to it?
Yes, I do. It's a lot. It is a lot of work.
Mhm.
Um, and like I said, like when you're starting something from the ground up, it's a lot of learning that you're doing on your own as well. So that's going into the work that you're doing there, but it's so much more rewarding, a lot more rewarding, especially because if it's something that you're actually passionate about and that you care about, you're just like, oh my God, I feel the love, but also I'm giving that love back. And that's kind of just, and sometimes it does suck because the people that you are helping may not see it at first because you are still very like, you're still growing. They don't necessarily see the vision that you see, but it just takes you continuing to just push through and power through all of it, and then eventually they'll see what you're trying to do. But if you believe in what you're doing, that's all that matters.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ebony. We
Yeah,
really
these are
appreciate it.
great questions. Wow. I love
Well,
this.
hey, no, it is, it is what it is. I'm not gonna give the floor to Lauren. Lauren, what is your question?
Hi, I'm Lauren. Thank you so much for giving so much insight, especially that I'm thinking about going into the media track too, and especially like media planning. But so like we're at this point where we're creating like content and the TV spot for our clients, and it might be like useful to like scour the internet for like narratives as you guys were talking about. And I know that you were emphasizing that VaynerMedia usually just like puts out content
Mhm.
um out and then like just like sees how people react. um and so I'm wondering, as like a best practice or just tips that you have for someone who is interested in media but also is involved in this project, and doesn't have like the crazy tools that like agency usually have. Like how can you listen to these narratives and the conversations on social media where you can develop these narratives in a sense?
Yeah, so believe it or not, we just we just use all the things that you guys use. If anything, we just have the tools that we have at agencies kind of just aggregates all of the data or like all of the things that you see separately. But if you have Instagram or if you have Twitter, you have Facebook, you can see the comments, and that's honestly what we're looking at. So like how I said, the Vayner volume model, it's a bunch of different math that's combining likes, comments, retweets with comments, and yeah, that's basically about it. But like I said, if you just read, and it can just be anything that you're interested in, that's all the more better, because you're coming in with something that they have no idea even exists, and that's what really matters. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Sam, I'm not going to read your paragraph. Please, if you can go ahead and ask Ebony what you just wrote. I think it'll be better if it comes out from you, because I don't want to like say it and maybe it comes off differently.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you, obviously, for sharing and opening up about your experiences. And I think that's really cool that you had your Hang Time magazine that was able to kind of get picked up and run with it. And that's really awesome that you're able to have that on the side. But I know that you said earlier when you were talking about getting hired, you mentioned like the phrase like checking, like are they just like checking the box, you know, just to make sure that they have some representation, and and I think that, you know, when you were hired, it may or may not have been like as front of the mind as it is now, given the current climate. And given the agencies are putting out all these statements and making all these pledges to increase their diversity numbers, do you ever feel like some of these agencies might just be checking the box? And if so, like what are some signs to like recognize this and be able to either like speak up or leave that agency?
Yeah, no, I honestly think it just depends on the person. So when it's happening to you, you can tell, like definitely. So, and it has happened. It's funny because I have people that are kind of trying to pull me out of Vayner. They're just like, hey, we see all these dope work and we're like trying to hire Black people. Or some people are just being really just like upfront. They're like, hey, I don't have a lot of Black people in my network. Can I add you on LinkedIn and just follow you? And I'm just like, okay, like that's crazy, but all right, like they're just open about it. So I don't know, it's very weird, but I would say like with Vayner, I didn't see them checking the box at first because I already saw representation. It wasn't until later on when like they openly said like, yeah, no, sometimes we do check the box. I'm like, oh wow, like y'all just gonna tell us like this? I'm like, all right, cool. But yeah, no, but it does depend on the person. So like if you do see it and you don't feel okay with taking the position, then don't, because that's just like who you are. But if you are like, if I won't say that I like took it. I just took it because I was like, I don't like where I'm at. I want to get out. Like it was a mental thing. I was just like, I can't work at the other place I was at anymore. I couldn't do it. So I was like, whatever place says yes, I'm out. Like I'm out. And they said yes. And then I saw the money. I'm like, hello. But that's what I said. It's like you're kind of just being selfish and also understanding like what is going to work for you. Yeah. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it did. Thank you.
Okay, cool.
All right, Ali.
Oh, I think you're muted.
No, I said Ali.
No, yeah, I stopped talking. I think he's muted.
Hello?
Yeah, I hear you now.
All right. Thank you so much for that. I want to go back to the VVM, Vayner Volume Model. You mentioned that the way you guys use it is by throwing a lot of stuff at different channels and seeing what sticks. I'm working as a strategist for my own project. How do you incorporate strategy into that, or is it just literally trial and error? And if that's the case, then how do you make a case for clients where they're okay with some content failing?
Yeah, no, so there's definitely a strategy. So VVM in itself, it's its own strategy. And it goes through so many different rounds, and even now it's constantly always changing, which makes sense because when you think about how content, like the content that does stick, you're like, all right, so now that we know that this piece of content works, we have to think of a specific strategy that works for this type of content. So it changes all the time, and I think that's why I like it, because I'm never bored, or like if there's like a low set, they're just like, oh, this entertainment like signal, we've got this, we've got to keep going. We're like, all right, well, what can we get from here? And we're kind of just like going, like we're just in the computer. But yeah, I only see the strategy once it comes to media. But when I see it, it looks very fleshed out, and it's just like any other like strategy brief, like any brief that you would see. It's just like, what's the problem? How can we solve it? Who's the target? It's the same thing. If anything, is the only thing that's different is that media metric. And it's like, once you have that, it's like, okay, how can we keep building onto it, even at like while the campaign is live? That's the thing. It's like you're still like everything's changing even while like the campaign is going on. So.
Awesome. Does anybody else have any other questions for Ebony?
Yes, I have a question.
Go ahead, Brianna.
Hi. Okay, thank you for speaking tonight, Ebony. So I saw on your social media page that you all were doing a meet a Black person interview with a few of your people. Were you a participant, and how did you like being interviewed?
So you mean from VaynerMedia?
Yes.
Okay, so I wasn't the interviewee. We were finding people in the industry to interview.
Okay.
I had made those designs, and that's where like coming in, like doing things outside of work, you can bring that into work. And so I should have mentioned this. So, and I don't know if all agencies do this, but I know Vayner and my last agency did it, and it just comes with the people that work there. Is a bunch of Black people just came together. We're just like, hey, we see you over there. We see you in the kitchen. We see you over there. Let's make a group. Let's talk. Let's see how we can work. Let's see how we can bring diversity and let people know that we're here and that we do stuff. So that's like one thing that you can like, so if you ever work at an agency or you even interning, you're just like, hey, so I want to show that Black people are dope, or like Asian people are dope, like, because we have difference here. Like we have a LGBTQ, we have Pacific Asians, we have Blacks, we have Latin Americans. It's all over, but we all have different things that kind of just show what we as a people or we as a group are doing to make this agency dope, or like to show like, yo, we can do dope stuff aside from what our day jobs are. And with that, I was able to take photos during events or design a flyer for that event, the Meet a Black Person, which was very interesting. I asked them, I said, do you really want to name it this way? They're like, nah, yeah, we want to name it this way. I was like, all right, cool.
I was thinking the same thing. I was wondering. I was just like, wait a minute.
It was definitely our group. And I asked them, I said, do you really want to do this? And they were like, yeah. And it sucked because, and I was actually very offended by this. And it wasn't in my building, it was a different building, so they plastered it everywhere. They put it in one of the bathrooms, and someone actually took it down, crumpled it up, and threw it out. And so that actually went straight up to like the C-suite. Then they made an announcement, sent out emails, was like, look, y'all not gonna do this to our people. These people work here, they put hard work. And I just was like, yes, thank you. I was like, I'm going into the Slack group. I'm like, yeah, what they said, don't take my stuff. But no, yeah, I'm so glad you saw that. I should share that more, because that was a fun week. It was a fun month. And then also just kind of bringing it outside, because it was for Black History Month. We made it expand beyond that. So like Women's History Month comes right after. So we were just like, let's blend it in here. And it's kind of just like keeps going. And then it came to a point where people were like, when does it end? And we're like, it never ends. So it was really cool. But yeah, no, I designed that, and we just like hit up a bunch of different people, just like, are you down to do this? And they're like, yeah. Some people didn't get back to us at all, and that's okay too. But you can literally do it anywhere. Just like raise your hand up, like, I can organize this if you like. Yeah.
Okay, it seemed very cool. So are you guys going to expand on it further once COVID is over, or you can do like a different kind of version of it virtually?
Yeah, so they're doing virtual versions of it right now, but not even because of COVID, but just the way how we've been seeing people in the industry move. I know that a lot of them have been very weary of who they want to talk to, because and we all say this too, it's like not all skin folk are kinfolk. So we're all coming to that realization where we're just like, well, should we work with them? And a lot of people have their own intel and they're just like, well, I saw this happen. I'm just like, I'm gonna just keep my mouth shut, because I'm just like, it's really like, it's like, and that's the thing. What you do outside the agency will always come back. This industry is so small, and like people kept saying that, and I didn't realize it until now. But I'm like, oh wow, though it's really small. Like everyone sees everything, or like if they don't, they'll see it eventually. But yeah, they do want to continue. It was like the speaker series. They were doing it even before I came, and that's just something that they do to just like let people know, like, this is what Black people are doing even outside the agency. This is a talent you're kind of missing out on. This could be us, but you playing, all that type of stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing. I appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you for checking it out.
Yeah, no problem. No problem at all.
Awesome. I think we have room for like one more question if anybody wants to ask. If not,
I have a question.
okay, Ernst. Yes.
Yeah. Hi, Ebony. As a planner, what skills would you say, I guess like technical skills, so like understanding metrics, using certain types of software, do you feel are like necessary, at least on the entry level role, like going into like starting your career?
Yeah, so I had to understand how to use MRI or Nielsen, just understanding like target audiences and being able to see what people are looking at from like a BS standpoint, just all like just in general, like what are people thinking, what are their behaviors like, what are they doing. Excel, you need to really know Excel. I hate Google Sheets, but that's also good. But Excel is real, like you have to understand like the different formulas in there because it will save your life. I don't like math, but Excel helps me in math so much. I hate it so much. You will never see me trying to do like a calculator because I don't have time for it. What's another thing? Social media, understanding different social media platforms, and not just the platform itself, because it's free to do the business side. And a lot of people don't realize that, but you can just easily just go into Facebook Ads Manager and just play around with it. So if you know how to do that, that's a plus. There's, the Facebook Blueprint, especially like doing the exams, it really helps to do that as well. And one thing I didn't mention is that I did a program right before I had finished school called Co-op, where they actually taught me digital marketing skills. So like if you just go down like a list of like all the digital marketing like platforms or programs, like that will literally just give you a leg up. And I think that's why I also got like reached out, is because a lot of people who are also entry level didn't know any of those, because they essentially, I'm coming in already knowing those tools, versus someone they're like, oh, we have to hire them and then teach them how to do it. That's going to be a lot of work. We kind of want this done now. So I would definitely, like, if you can, just like, you can easily Google it, just like different like digital marketing tools. Oh yeah, someone put it in there, Co-op. Yes, you can go to Co-op. I'm guessing we have some co-opers. Yeah, that's so dope. Yeah, everyone here, that's so dope. Okay, cool. But yeah, no, Co-op is a really dope, like a dope program. And like they really help you give like a leg up. And they have this saying called trust the process, and it sounds very culty, but it's so real. It's so real, and it's just like, all right, cool. Yeah.
Thank you.
So yeah, it's a bunch of different ones.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ebony. We really appreciate all the insights. Like you really have given us like a lot of thoughts, like a lot of tips and tricks, for everyone. Like I personally learned like a lot of things, honestly, from you as well, like that I didn't know about, and I think that are very, very insightful. And I think you are a great example of, being like multidisciplinary and how that comes to your benefit. And I really encourage everyone, to look up to you and like take from your experience that like, you don't have to start on one track to end up on a senior level of that track. you can start anywhere and then just dip your hands and learn and get experience and then be noticed and then, get into a role that maybe you have never expected. So, and it's all, and you're a clear example of like the learning experience. So, we learn throughout our careers. We don't know where we're going to head. We don't know which company is going to take us. We don't know if we're going to end up in like, maybe like medical marketing or like in healthcare, pharmaceuticals, or maybe in just like entertainment. God knows what's going to happen in 2 years, and like now with the pandemic. So the learning experience is what makes you. And I think I want to encourage everyone to understand that like there is no one track. There are tracks everywhere around, and it's really up to you to just be there and be visible. Just like Ebony, she was visible on LinkedIn. She had her own thing going on, and she got noticed, and she got scouted as a talent. So the traditional path of like applying to a job, yet is there. We all do it on a day-to-day basis, but you will be noticed, and that's what I tell everyone. Honestly, like at some point, you're gonna be scouted, but you're not gonna be scouted unless you are visible in a way that that makes you comfortable. So thank you so much, Ebony, for sharing all of that, and we really appreciate you for the talk. And we definitely want to stay in touch. Can I tell everyone to follow you on LinkedIn? If that's
Yeah,
okay?
I would love that. Honestly, anyone that's a friend of Kenny and Gary, come my way. Come my way.
All right, I'm gonna leave it to you for the breakout.
All right. So Ebony, thank you so very much. I love you like cake and cook food. Like I love all these wonderful people on the call.
All your friends might be cakes.
They're all cakes. They're all cakes. They're all cakes. One for some of you that didn't join the call when Ebony first joined on, because some of the Growth Initiative Fellows know about the Young Commodores program, but all of them don't know. All of them don't know that that's how we got together. So for all the Growth Initiative Fellows, Ebony was in the very first class of Young Commodores, the program I created before Growth. And I couldn't be more proud of Ebony. Just the way I've literally watched her come up in the game, and she hit me up like, yo, should I take this job? And I'm like, nah, it's not enough fucking money. No, wait for but that's real talk. That's real talk. That's real talk. But just to watch Ebony come up in the game and go from a Young Commodore to a Young Commodore moderator, and then go from Young Commodores to MAPE, and just putting her foot in the game's ass, literally. So everything that you all are going through right now, Ebony has been through, because she was my first pet project of the group.
It worked.
And I mean, we tried our best, but you already came awesome. We just kind of just like sprinkled some special sauce on it. So shout out to all the Young Commodores that joined the call today too. They're definitely showing love on the Sunnyside Chat. And hopefully you all got something out of it. I told y'all I was going to bring y'all the ladies. And when I was going to bring y'all the ladies, I was going to bring y'all like literally the best ladies. So literally like some black girl magic, some white girl magic too, some Latina magic, like, some Asian magic. I'm bringing it all during these Sunnyside Chats. But
you never mention the Middle Easterns, do you?
No, we don't. We don't rock with the Middle Easterns.
They exist though. They definitely exist.
Yeah.
They're just in a cut.
Yeah, because we can't get the hummus right. So
it's because there's no tahini.
Oh my God! Wow, and it's being recorded. We should keep it like
no, we gotta edit that shit out.
We don't have to.
But yeah, Eb. Thank you so very much for spending a little bit of time with us this evening. I'm sure they got a lot out of it. Your inbox will probably blow up tomorrow, because that's how the GIs do. So once again, thank you so very much for making a little bit of time in your schedule, because I know you're busy with the magazine and work, and obviously the world is on fire. So for you to even give us a little bit of time you know, that means the world to us. And, you know, you had Jad giving you the best that he's got as usual. So, you know, we are very thankful for your time tonight. So we're going to let you go because they got mad work to do tonight, and everything like that. Shout out to the YCs that came through and showed love tonight. You know, we'll talk on the group text.
Yeah, exactly.
on the big group text. But yeah, so yeah, that's it. And, you know, now they got to go into their breakout rooms and do some work.
Okay. Thank you again. I'm going to cry myself to sleep now.
YC's forever. You know what it is. YC's for life.
Yes, YC for life.
All day.
All right. Yeah, you guys are in great hands. So it was a pleasure.
All right, cool. Peace. Thank you. All right, y'all. I'm throwing y'all into breakouts.